You ever have one of those mornings where you just know something's about to shift, like the universe is waiting to see if you'll break or if you'll fight back? Well, let me tell you about the day everything changed for me at Benny's Dinero place, where I used to just hope to blend in and have my coffee in peace, but ended up learning something about myself and about this town that I'll never forget. Picture this: red vinyl booths that haven't changed since Eisenhower was president, the smell of bacon in the air, sunlight pouring through those big old windows, and out there in the square, that bronze statue of a soldier, always standing guard like some silent promise that sacrifice still means something, though you'd never know it by the way folks acted inside. My name's Rachel Morgan, Corporal, U.S. Army, retired, feels like the world's cruelest joke some mornings. Wheelchair-bound since Afghanistan, 2 Purple Hearts and a Bronze Star in a box somewhere, and a body that don't always listen, but a spirit stubborn enough to drag me out of bed for my 7 a.m. coffee run every day for the last 6 months. That diner became my little front line, a place to stake my flag and declare I wasn't giving up, not after everything I'd lost and everything I'd fought to keep. But you know how it goes, some battles you don't get to choose. Like clockwork, that group of college kids always showed up after me. Brad Hutchkins and his band of rich bullies, yeah. His daddy's name is on half the storefronts in Cedar Falls, would roll in and start up their show. You ever see a pack of young dogs circling a wounded animal? That's what it felt like every morning. Jokes about my wheelchair, about my scars, about the broken toy soldier. The whole diner would just freeze up, eyes sliding away. Nobody wanted to get in the way of Hutchkins' money, or just plain not wanting the trouble. And me, I'd grip my coffee cup, remind myself not to flinch, and pray to God for a little peace. On this Tuesday, they showed up early, loud as ever. Brad opens with, "Well, look who's here, our favorite broken G.I. Jane. You working at McDonald's yet? Or will they require you to stand?" His friends bust up laughing, and I can hear the old man at the counter cough, but he doesn't say a word. They kept going, parking meter jokes, wheelchair jokes, like I was invisible except as a punchline. Most days, I cut my breakfast short and wheel out, pretend I had somewhere better to be. Not today. I don't know if it was the sleepless night, or maybe thinking about my boy, Liam, who is overseas with the 82nd Airborne. Maybe it was just the last straw. I stayed. Now, let me back up. S.E. Liam and I were both stubborn, both Army. He grew up seeing his mom as some kind of hero, and after my accident, I think he felt guilty he couldn't protect me, and I felt the same for letting him see me like this. He was due home next week, and I'd been dreading it, not the reunion, but facing him when I could barely face myself. Funny, isn't it? Out there in a war zone, he's a hero. Here at home, his mom's just target practice for kids who've never sacrificed a thing. Brad got bold, threw a sugar packet at my legs. See, she doesn't even feel a Thalf robot now. His buddies cracked up, and the whole place went dead quiet except them. You know what burns worse than cruelty? It's when good people go quiet and let it happen. That silence, it's like a second injury. I was ready to leave, dignity in shreds, when the bell over the door chimed and everything flipped upside down. 6 soldiers, dress uniforms sharp as razors, boots hitting tile in perfect time, filled the doorway. Leading them was Staff Sergeant Mike Torres, a guy I'd never met, but I knew the lucreal deal Army, the kind who's seen trouble and survived it. He saluted and said, "Ma'am, Corporal Morgan, we've been looking for you." My stomach dropped. "Is Liam?" "Your son is fine, ma'am. In fact, he sent us." Turns out, Liam had told his unit about his hero mom, said they needed to meet the woman who taught him what honor really means. Those soldiers surrounded my table suddenly. The bullies who thought they owned the place looked small, like little boys caught breaking windows. Phones came out, people whispering, the air shifting from ugly to electric. Private Sarah Chun stepped forward, holding a little wooden box. "Your son asked us to bring you this. From all of Bravo Company." I opened it. Inside was a challenge coin. One side my old unit's patch, the other side engraved, "Corporal Rachel Morgan, hero, mother, warrior. Your sacrifice echoes through generations." My hand started shaking, and I'll admit it, I cried right there, not just for the pain, but because someone finally saw me. Saw all of us who come home in pieces. Staff Sergeant Torres didn't stop there. He turned to the whole diner and let them have it in that clear, carry-across-the-desert Army tone. "You're looking at a hero," he said. 3 tours, 17 lives saved under fire, 2 Purple Hearts, a Bronze Star, and the respect of every soldier who's ever worn the uniform. Dead silence. Brad's face went pale as his father's checkbook. The room, shifted people who'd never said a word started to approach, offering apologies, some tears. Even Benny, the old owner, squeezed my hand and whispered, "I'm ashamed, ma'am. I should have stopped this months ago." And then this kid, must have been about 8, walks over shy, holding a napkin he drew on. Stick figure in a wheelchair, my hero scrawled up top in crayon. "My daddy says you're brave," he mumbled. I took that drawing, and it felt heavier than any medal I'd ever earned. That's the thing about kindness from a child, it goes straight through all your armor. But the room didn't stay peaceful for long. Brad stood up, red-faced, and started yelling. "So she was in the Army, big deal. Why does that make her better than us?" You could feel the tension, like everyone was waiting for the roof to blow off. Torres stared him down. "Son, I'd choose your next words carefully." But Brad kept going, digging his own grave. "I'm tired of hero worship. She knew the risks. Why should we tiptoe around her? You know, sometimes it takes one fool's outburst for truth to finally have a voice." I wheeled myself right up to his booth, heart hammering but steady. "You're right, Brad," I said. "I chose to serve. I chose to leave my baby with my mother and deploy to Afghanistan. I chose to run toward gunfire when others ran away. I chose to throw myself over 2 wounded soldiers, knowing it'd probably cost me my legs. I made those choices so people like you could sit here and say whatever's on your mind, without ever fearing for your life." The whole diner froze. Not just out of shock, but because sometimes honesty lands like a bomb and clears the air of all the lies. "The only thing I never chose," I said, "was to let your cruelty define me. And I'm not making that mistake again." And that's when it happened. The whole place, every soul, stood up and started to clap. It was loud, messy, real. Even some of Brad's buddies joined in, faces wet. That 8-year-old boy started it, and soon everyone was on their feet except Brad, who finally broke, tears pouring down his cheeks, and started to clap too. Torres leaned in. "Ma'am, your son's outside. He said to tell you he's proud." When those soldiers led me out, Benny pressed an envelope in my hand. "Breakfast is on the house, forever. You'll always be welcome here." Out on Main Street, my son stood at attention, surrounded by his unit. He hugged me tight, the kind of hug you only get after years apart and too many scars to count. He knelt and told me, "Mom, you're the reason I serve. You're not just my hero, everyone's hero." The local news was there by then. Word travels fast in a small town, and they filmed the whole thing. Colonel Patterson showed up, handed me a medal, and announced I'd be serving as honorary advisor for the Army's Wounded Warrior program. That part was nice, but you want to know what really mattered? It was seeing those face-me neighbors, my town finally seeing me, not as a burden, but as someone worth standing for. The story blew up, went viral. Folks from all over the country reached out, sent letters, called for better treatment of veterans. Even Brad turned his life around, started volunteering with veteran groups. Benny's Diner became a sanctuary for soldiers, the walls lined with photos and stories of locals who served. Me? I started a foundation, Wheels of Courageto, help other disabled vets reclaim their dignity. 5 years later, I come back to Benny's with Liam, his wife, and my granddaughter. Her name's Hope, if you can believe that. And over coffee, I hold that little girl and say, "You know what I learned? Heroes aren't made by what happens to them, but by how they respond. Real strength? It's what you do when the world calls you broken and you refuse to break." So, let me ask you, who decides what a hero really looks like? When was the last time you stood up for someone who couldn't stand for themselves? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk about what courage, dignity, and real community mean to you.